Brother Moses here, back on my dirty red recliner, here to have a quick conversation. Probably not so quick as I come to think about it because there is a lot that's gone on this week. Social media is going crazy over a number of topics that I want to get into, so stay tuned. I'm gonna let some folks come on in. Then I'm also going to go into the top three stories that I'm looking at today. Those top three stories do have to talk about it, man. I do have to talk about it because they are deep, man. Number one story that I'm thinking on about speaking on right now will be this Ti Candace Owens situation. That is going to the character worship of the Divest themselves, but there is there's a conflicting space, one that believes and loves black people, and then the others who is seeking the approval of their white or multiracial countersphere. So that topic there is going to be major, a lot to unpack there. But moving forward from that, there is another one that really speaks to home. That is the Fantasia story, the that episode there on Instagram was phenomenal. But Kendall Taylor, the husband of Fantasia, comes on and says some very enlightening perspective, or the male perspective of submission inside of the relationship. So black homes being something that I definitely am a proponent for. Got to break that or go into there. A lot to unpack there. Not too much there. It's a lot of superficial things, subjective, what you believe versus what other people believe, but it's definitely a lot of information there. And then lastly, the third story from this same social political space would be that David Banner podcast. Oh my God. Flame emojis, man. If you haven't watched it, man, check it out. That David Banner goes into a couple of topics. The one that was most relevant for me that I really liked a lot was the censorship aspect, or the self-censorship aspect. Um, Times when you want to say nigga, but you say brother, man, things like that, man. All three of these stories taken together created one heck of a journey this week in social media, a heck of a journey in just the conversation on race relations, social and political, economic, so many different lenses to which this information can be viewed on. So I do want to add a bit of a perspective there. Before I jump into it, as always, I do want to present one of these songs by one of these artists. It's not the full song. It is just the music for it. Hopefully this thing can come on out and play for us. But again, my computer is not the best, working on that. I got to even make sure that my voice is coming through, because oftentimes I've even started these podcasts having a conversation just with myself till folks come into the room. They finally come into the room, and only to realize that my microphone was not even picking up. So used to it. All right, I got my YouTube notification through my email that says, now live on the channel, should Black Americans divest from the United States? Now, I got to give credit where credit is due. The conversation comes from a YouTuber who I respect and admire. Big content. When I first came into the picture of listening to what they were presenting. Oh, yeah, I'm here. Yeah. What up, Ed? What up, Xander? Nephew? That already came into it. Veteran, somebody who was keen on the different benefits that were there, but taking advantage of those benefits on a global space, or in a space that doesn't limit us to America. And that person is not the educated, the podcast. Sorry, when I came in, it was the educated smoker, but Cast Life, who I know by on Facebook, and then now the podcast, or is it the podcast or the cast pod? I think it's the cast pod. Anyway, she said this topic, she brought it up. And in order to get myself ready to hear that conversation, I got to put my thoughts out there and see, because I think about it from a Pan-Africanist lens. In hindsight, should Black Americans divest from the United States? I think about it from a number of different lenses. The economic benefits, would they be running from something or running towards something? All of that and more on this morning discussion here on a beautiful Saturday morning. So happy Saturday to everybody who's joined me right now. Let me cue the music and let me get ready to go on in on the first topic, which will be that T.I. Candace Owens. Oh my God, I got some. I had to dig a little bit deeper for that one. Real Clear Politics. I shot them out for the story that they consolidated already. They'll help me get into it. But good night, my computer is running slow. What in the world? Such a delay. Maybe tell me that I don't need to come in with my bill. Maybe we can. It should still be allowing me to access my browser. That it is not doing at all. I mean, when I tell you I got a slow computer, nephew, I am talking about this bad boy. Like, you know how you just click like Internet Explorer. I'm trying to bring them out. Let's debate some of those points. Bruh, we got a whole bunch of people putting out other narratives and stuff. We need that counter narrative to come on out there. You got an educated perspective that we like, but you also got a pro-black perspective, and you're also about that fuckery that people like too. So you could probably start building a channel if you're willing to invest in it. So that now got to invest in it if I want to take it a little bit more seriously, because this internet browser still has not come back up. It will not allow me access to my own browser. I tell you, this thing shuts down sometimes. It does all the weird stuff that you can if you're delivering on subject matter. B1 Network, man, we deliver content. Rock with the kid difficulties. You do know the first story that we will be discussing is the one that's been kind of questions or suggestions. Go and feel free to drop those in the chat if you are interactive. Any comments, if you're catching it in a live stream, would be greatly appreciated. Something to think about, something to build upon. This first topic here, I got two things that I want to go through. I typically don't do the whole recap of what happened. If you don't know, check it out, Google it, put it in YouTube. You'll see the story. You'll see the context behind it. The position that I want to make, I do to establishing that position with data or with research or with further explanation, and then I'll give a little bit of an opinion about it, what my position is, and then I'll give you the little context of the details behind why that position is out there or why I'm, and then I'll give you my opinion about it. First topic: T.I. and Candace Owens bring to the forefront of public discourse when was America. All right, now that is as for me because it is a question to ask yourself through history and at the balance statement that is American capitalism. And immediately, most minds would say, well, because I'm African American, it jumps back to slavery. But even then, I am versed enough or educated enough to know that there are some spaces where even that slavery did not prevent the landmass of the states from being of a benefit to Africans and American or African descent, Black people. The conditions of slavery themselves did not prevent that internal force that's within Africans and African Americans. That spirit, that a life well lived meant. The institutional part of America, or the institutional slavery, now that's different. The institutions, the leadership, the dominance, the governance, the rule of law, the order, law and order, the economic structures in place, the market, the laissez-faire market, or the market society, any of these different functions of what enhances the life or the quality of life of the inhabitants of that geographic location. Now, those are up for debate. Now, those do define or influence even those smaller spaces where you as an individual, as an African descent, may have had a high quality of life, a high standard based off the things that you wanted to accomplish and achieve in your spaces, right? So the individual African Americans or African Black folks, I'm gonna stop doing all the politically correct and just say what the fuck I want to say. And if somebody wants to correct me afterwards, feel free. Black folks in America or of African descent, even during the institution of slavery, still had their own integrity. They still had their own psychological being. They had their own emotional states that drove them towards making certain decisions and not making other decisions, right? And their ability to impact decisions from their internal lens, albeit there are the external influences that are strong, but they're internal. What can you actually control as a human being, the things that are inside of you? And that very limited space, there are spaces where they had a good quality of life. And we can show that. But I think the topic is bigger than just an individual. And just the premise of making America great would disprove that slavery is a time period where America was great. Black folks in America. Individually, yes. Emotionally, spirituality, some of the cultural nuances that they had, the skills of agriculture, being able to be a part of a producing class and generating works, feeding your family, all of those things. Or if you could have a family, and I know in many cases history doesn't point out that we were allowed that freedom of even of that was not allowed because of some of those bigger ramifications of slavery, the economics, the politics, the ownership, those other spaces, right? Let me see if I can. Oh, they finally gave me back. They finally gave me access to. Oh, so I'm in my own back chat. So let me see if I can share the screen. So if we can disprove was not where America was great, only be a Black perspective that says slavery where America was great, or do we still have the obstacle of convincing white folks that slavery was not a great era? Is there still the challenge that the majority inside of America, being not white population, still believe that slavery was the great era? That's my assumption. My assumption is Candace Owens is now being a puppet for the white supremacist talking points, willingly and voluntarily, where they still era. America was greatest during slavery. She doesn't want to help. And in fact, she would rather do something different as she is working to seek white approval. Yeah, sometimes I got to stop and slow down because I talk very fast and I will drop tidbits and talking points and I will drop bombs on them. If I had sound effects, we would put some of those in that channel right there. As she is seeking the approval of white folks, she is not looking to eradicate this idea that slavery was the great era. In fact, I think she is outright trying to dismiss or deny the fact that there is a great majority inside of the white population that does in fact believe that it was during slavery when America was great. The great industrial revolution is when America was great, or thereafter. Now, I am projecting from my own lens. It is a question that she would never answer, as she did not answer on the stage. So let's do the benefit of the doubt, devil's advocate, and move forward and say it wasn't slavery. It was after emancipation, but before the 20th century. So between 1865 to 1899 is the era where America was great. Reconstruction, the rise of the Klan, the shutdown of the Klan, and the re-rise of the Klan again. Acres of United States government American property was act. But if you dive into the details of it, that promise of was for about 1,000, I think it was like 10,000 African Americans who had fought and received some land. The Sherman Act, Field Order 15, and a large tract of land. 4,000 acres. So 400 million acres given away in this period between the 65 and 1899. 400 million acres of land were given away by the United States government, the same government that she's working and having those conversations with today. At the time, it started off with like the 37th Congress. I think we're up to like the 115th Congress or something like that. But at that time, I'm trying to establish the premise of what the fuck she talking about. There got to be an era when America was great for black people. It just has to be. And if we've already outruled, we're ruled out slavery, because no, she doesn't, for whatever, let's rule out slavery. Let's move forward, period by period, and see which one she's actually referring to when she's saying make America great again as a black political activist with the ear of the president. Wow, this thing is finally opened up the screen for me to share my second screen. I mean, when I tell you this computer is working inefficiently slow, I might have to get 1,000 subscribers just so I can get me a little super chat link so we can invest in me some better technology. Now, I ain't gonna have to do all that. I'm gonna just have to take my lazy ass over there to that damn Guitar Center and then over to Best Buy and get a better computer and the cords and shit to move forward. But it should not take 5 minutes for this thing to open up the ability for me to share my damn screen. Because y'all didn't need to see it anyway, but it's just out of flow for me. Taz, what up? For me, I like to be chronological. I want to give you my premise that the bitch doesn't know what she's talking about. And I know some of y'all will be like, why she gotta be all that? Because she married a white guy and because she talking, because she's a fuck all that. This bitch is crazy, man. I'm trying to find the era that she's talking about when America was great so that we're at least on the same talking track. Like, okay, can I agree or disagree? Will she ever answer the question? And if I could ever share the screen, you would see why let me see if it works this time. I'm trying to get into the information first. Sound like I'm just shooting off on some other shit. Yeah, brother, StreamYard is tripping, but the StreamYard is the only one that allows me to share the stream or bring in other folks to have this conversation. I would try to invite you, but this motherfucker liable to take 30 minutes before it gets you that invite, man. But yeah, man, I would love to invite you in. Three conversations or 3 topics real quick that are on the table for discussion. Feel free to put your input into that chat. But T.I. and Candace Owens, Fantasia, I know a lot of people want to talk about it from the Fantasia's perspective or from the woman being the submissive part. I got a different lens. I'll give you my talking point right now. What does it look like to be a submissive husband? Kendall Taylor, talk about it. What does it look like to be a submissive husband? Oh, did I just cut somebody? They want to have a conversation about what it means to be a submissive wife. What does it mean to be a submissive husband, or the expectation of a submissive husband? Where they do that at? What is it going to take for men to understand that they at sometimes have to be submissive? They submit. You bow down. You bow down. Yeah, you do. You shut the fuck up when Debo leave. You be talking again. You get permission when you think you need to get permission. I was at work and that shit came up, Taz. Motherfucker, we was going to the happy hour and the motherfucker called his wife, and I was thinking he was just gonna be like, happy hour after work, be home at like 4:30. Nah, bro, it was full-blown permission request. I said, damn, bro, times is getting hard, my dude. Times are, but I understand it, because every once in a while you're at that space, and even your own relationship, where you just got to reconsider the way you go about communicating. And so I get it. I'm not gonna just be, super shallow with it. Oh shit! Hey, can somebody drop a 1 in the chat if Those donuts in the microwave. So are we still able to see the screen or not? Did the screen come up? Did I lose it? Yeah, man. With all of these different talking points that we're hearing on in the Black YouTube space, I'm thinking that there's going to be a real challenge with these men having to come on out and tell us why they want to be submissive to their women. What does it mean to be submissive? We're gonna have to give them a little platform, let them talk about all of the things when they were with that black woman, and the black woman was, I guess, dominating them or moving in certain spaces, and she was having her way in the relationship. How did that really impact them? MGTOW, men going their own way. What is one of their major talking points? That women's attitude. When you try to get them to drill down a little bit, what about that black woman's attitude do you really not like? Oh, she's bossy, or she doesn't listen. She's all of these other areas. So I'm starting to see that they had been moved into the subordinate position of submission to their wife. They had been moved closer to a space where it was 50-50, and they felt very uncomfortable because their natural masculine energy wanted to be more dominant, but they were not able to exercise that dominance inside of even their own shared spaces, like their own home. On the cell phone, they wanted to hang up on her so bad. They like, man, I just want to hang up on this bitch sometimes, and they didn't have nuts to hang up on that woman, wife or not, girlfriend or not. And so the conversation is going to shift to submissive husbands, I guess. And I think that's the imagery that you can pull away from this Fantasia submissive wife comment. Got on Instagram. I got the tab up. It's not popping up for me just yet on my screen. So we'll see what happens. Oh no, I'm seeing it now. Here we go. The imagery is, the effeminate black male, and the black male being, this caricature or typecasting of the black male. And as you look through the lens of media and see what the black male has been projected as in so many different spaces, it went to a gay black man as being the most acceptable or hireable form of black men inside of corporate America. And then it shifted from being the gay black, the clean dreadlocks, not those nappy dreadlocks, but the clean little twisties, you could almost call them motherfuckers. A nigga with twisties, not braids or cornrows. Cornrows, you're not getting this job, but the little twisties, the nice twisties. And if you wear your nice twisties, and if you talk very feminine and very emasculated, then you may have a shot. And now it is all the way out there. Black men, be submissive to your wife. I'm gonna cut somebody today. Somebody ain't gonna like this shit. You got to be a real nigga to understand the sarcasm in this shit, but this shit gonna go. I'm gonna cut the shit out of you, man. And it took this conversation to make me realize him standing next to her. And then the women have every right to have the conversation from the perspective of Fantasia. They have every right to push back. But it didn't register for me why men would be complaining about a non-submissive woman. And so I would only laugh and outright dismiss it as being YouTube entertainment. These niggas can't be serious, is what I would say to myself. Bro, Rob, man, I'm trying to work through my technology issues so I can put the link in the chat. I would love for you to come up and build on this conversation. I'm using a little bit of satire, and nobody likes sarcasm, but fuck it if they can't take a joke. But we got 3 issues that we got to jump into, man. Celebrity stuff is big, man, and I didn't want to put it in there like it was clickbait. You know me, I like to have the real conversation from a real nigga lens. And sometimes when I do it, it goes right over their heads. They say I'm trying to be too smart or educated. I'm conflating. I'm talking about issues that aren't particularly relevant and all of that shit. So fuck all that bullshit. Let me get into it. I think my screen's finally up. It's still working a little bit slow or less than optimally. And so again, I'll work on that in the future. Right now, the way my checkings and my savings is set up, we're gonna have to work on this investment one component at a time. But I started off originally on that T.I. and the Candace Owens debate. Listen to it all the way through. It wasn't even really a debate, but they were sharing a stage and a platform. T.I. interrupted her a couple of times, and she tried to interrupt him. He then stepped up and said, "Hey, let me talk. I didn't interrupt you." And then next thing you know, she's talking and he cuts her off and she says, hey, I guess we're even because whatever happened. And so it did draw out the same major talking point that most people are referring to, which is the Make America Great Again. Should Black people be Trump supporters? Is that slogan relevant to the Black experience? Asking the question, when in history was America great for the Black American? You can go chronologically. If we just outright just say slavery was probably not the best one, and I think many people would agree. Only problem is the majority of Americans, those white boys, probably still believe that slavery was probably a good time in American history. Now, that could go two ways, right? Because we do know that there was a hell of a lot of immigration that makes many of these folks, they had nothing to do with the slave. They could only benefit from the transatlantic slave trade. But these folks aren't intergenerational slave owner descendants themselves. They came over on a fucked up boat themselves. But in any event, and it was probably well after the slave, after the 1864 period. So the second period would be the Reconstruction, 1864, 5-ish, all the way to the 1899. Is that the era that she's referring to, when there was the mass distribution of government lands, public lands, to the tune of over 400 million acres distributed, but that 40 acres and a mule promise of about 400,000 acres of land? Sherman, I know Taz knows about this. That field order 15 and that land that was supposedly redistributed, just get on Google Maps or something and look at that land today. Now, if you've watched any of my presentations, you know I've shown that strip of land. I can bring up the picture at some point. It probably won't be today since my computer is operating less than optimally, but it is something that will be available where we can actually look at that land strip. Oh, shit. Is it going to kick me on my whole page? Some bitch. I think it is. Fuck it. The sources are there and they probably didn't want me sharing their content anyway. It's crazy, right? So I could share this article to all of my network, but if I share it visually on YouTube, YouTube will give me a strike. Ain't that about a bitch? Anyway, it's just weird ass people. All right, good, bro, Rob. So what we're looking at here is I don't even want to go through the whole history lesson of establishing the different eras and then doing the critical lens to which African Americans experience, and then trying to determine out of that, now look at the pros and cons of each of those eras and do the pros and the advancements, whatever those advancements that you think you should evaluate each era on. A good show. Maybe I gotta see. Let me see, how do I do this? Hide this shit. Give me about 5 minutes. I'm gonna go in, and bro Rob, if you're available, bro Taz, if you're still available, man, maybe we could set down the criteria of looking at these different periods and eras that she's referring to. What is the criteria of greatness? Of great? What makes an era great? What are the key components that you're looking for? Social conditions, political outcomes, not just political involvement, but political outcomes. I guess criminal justice can be thrown in there, or law, the benefit of the law, or the benefits of the law, the benefits of citizenship, economic gains. Ain't this about a bitch? Fuck are you doing? You know, I think it is. I think like I've been hearing it, like if you're using StreamYards, I think they want you to turn off everything else. Like all of the different tabs that you might have up that you want to go into. And so it's almost going to get to the point of having to different medium and then kind of just sharing it in real time using whichever platform, but it might not be this one here. There's glitches as they become more popular that they are less able to resolve in realer time. So absolutely, Tess. Hey man, I'm gonna be listening in too, because these are the conversations that allow me to think critically about what my own views are. And until you've been in a position to challenge your own views, like I think a lot of people just had way too much fucking freedom. And they've never been put in a space of so utter discomfort that they had to really examine themselves as men and what they believed in. And because of that, they can't operate from the lens of a high functioning intellectual black male in any capacity. And so they really couldn't have the conversation from either perspective, whether they were educated or whether they were, you know, a blue collar. But anyway, here's the story that I went to after I went through the debates and shit. I'd always known that she held this position, but I'm gonna go through it just a little bit. And this is from the Real Clear Politics. So she, you know, she political activism is real with this lady. I don't know if she's I know she ain't no fucking senator or she's not a congresswoman. She ain't shit like that. And so I just give her I give her political activist and I just stick with it. But Candace Owens testifies. I don't know how the fuck is she testifying so goddamn much and going and sitting with the president so goddamn much. But she is in that motherfucker often. So if somebody knows exactly what she is or does, maybe she's a political advisor or something. I don't know what the fuck she does, but she's up there. Somehow she got her own motherfucking tent card with her name on it. But she goes there and she does things that I believe to be disloyal as fuck to her own skin tone. But I don't think that she's ever agreed to be black in the first place or to identify as black. I think she's one of those we are type people, if that makes any sense to you all. I think she's one of them we are. She's like one of those like everything is type people. Like when they ask, like, who should they say I am? I am that I am. I think she's one of those, like one of those race doesn't matter people. And her purpose is, in her narrative is to establish an America where we all are and therefore nobody is. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully that makes sense. It sounds like poetic, but it is the exact words that needed to be said. I disagree with that shit. I think that shit is a phenomenal fucking way of thinking, but I disagree with it. Nigga, black is beautiful, and ain't no reason to erase my blackness because you believe that it's being used or because people are slandering it. It's being used in a derogatory mark. It's being used. It's being discriminated against. All of that other shit. Okay, I get it. The system is still very real and very present. But I'm not on that boat where it's we are all. And when I say the world house, I'm still talking about black folk. When I say Pan-African, I'm still talking about black folk. I don't give a fuck what country you're doing business in. I don't give a fuck if you speak Mandarin, Arabic, Spanish, and French. I don't give a fuck what language you speak. If you can speak the language of love, I rock with you. And that love better goddamn extend to me. Even when we disagree, love hard. Anyway, let me jump into this shit, man. I can rant all day. This is going to be a rant. But Candace Owens testifies that a House oversight subcommittee hearing on confronting white supremacy. So what the fuck is going on? This dialogue is moving into those spaces where it should have been in the first place. To have the conversation alone with white supremacists will only get you so far. Just like having a conversation amongst the black voting demographic will only get you so far. Keeping it black first is good because there are a lot of opportunity areas where black Americans have to get on board. And it won't mean everybody black or black American gets on board. But these discussions are for black Americans and to help facilitate more black Americans getting on board with this black love type of ideology, the one that we've been allowed to stray from because we're distracted. We've been allowed to stray from it because I got bills to pay, because the way my checkings and savings are set up. We've been allowed to stray from it because the individual aims and the individual goals start to take precedent, even the individual household. The issues that I'm facing inside of my household are a higher priority and 99% consumption of my mental capacity. So I therefore don't have the time nor the will to move out into the community and do anything that would positively impact anyone else. That's the major excuse or the major premise that I'm seeing or that I'm hearing. That's why they justify individualism, or that's why they justify the individual versus community action, or even community thinking, or even the love that extends beyond oneself and one's own household. Hey, bro, Rob, I have no motherfucking idea who the hell elected Candace Owens, but she gets better representation than the entire Congressional Black Caucus by herself. She has more of an active role than the entire NAACP and their entire infrastructure. I mean, their chapters abroad. I mean, they're, you know what I'm saying? Their chapters in their chapters domestic and abroad. She has far greater influence or impact right now today than they've established. I mean, yeah, they've had their moments, but this is her motherfucking moment where she is not elected, but she is up there testifying. I'm trying to go slow, bro, Rob, because I know you already see the punchline. But 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when they're wondering what the fuck happened and they're looking back at these YouTube videos that we created and they were like, well, where were the black folks when she was doing this shit? Where was the opposition party? Where was the actual media? What were they talking about? So if we just get lost on talking about the TI, if we just get lost on some of those things, then we won't understand that this shit is actually happening right now in real time. A joint subcommittee hearing. So the House Oversight Joint Subcommittee. How the fuck does the House ever have oversight? First of all, first question she should have walked into that motherfucker was House Oversight. Talk to me about that. What the fuck are you overseeing? And if they would have broke down the oversight, well, we look at a lot of the different functions of the political process. We do have things from the Treasury and oversight, for example. They could have gave her all the examples and shit. Joint, meaning that there were more than one committees that were a part of this. So what were all the committees that were there? First things first, let's establish who's represented here in today's joint subcommittee. A subcommittee, meaning this isn't the final decision that's going to be made. A hearing means we're not making a decision today. We're just going to get it out on the table. And then they give you the topic. Confronting white supremacy. All right. I'm trying to go slow so it don't go over nobody's fucking heads when we get to this shit. And so what she testified was that it is part of a farce. So while confronting white supremacy from a pro-black or a B1 perspective, I'm like, man, this shit is too easy. When y'all were going after the Black Panther Party, what were some of the tools that you used to leverage? Well, you had the Central Intelligence Agency. You say, stop right there. Are they a part of this joint subcommittee? If the answer is no, then there's no reason for the meeting to continue. Other people from a pro-black lens might look at that and just say, nigga, they are the motherfucker. So I digress. Virginia in the building. West Virginia in the building. So a question, how much would it cost to confront white supremacy in America? Stop right there. Subcommittee on Treasury or Finance or the Appropriations Committee. Are you a part of the meeting? And if they're a part of the damn meeting, then can they answer that question? Or is this something that has never been studied? Is it one of those politically correct things where they would have to then turn around and say, well, there's probably some data that stands on there from the Census Population Bureau, the Census Bureau that we can investigate, but we don't have that answer at this time. But find us offline and we can probably get you those numbers. Give our office a call. And you say, okay, all right, write that down in my notes. We'll put that in the parking lot and then we'll revisit that. All right. The existence of white supremacy. Is there a, terrorist watch list, or is Ku Klux Klan on there? And welcome back. Hopefully my volume comes back on, but again, I am using the StreamYard services, and right now there are some technical difficulties that I believe they are working through. Some of those technical difficulties is the frequent disconnect. The frequent disconnect. So, hey, bro, Rob, is this making sense though? Out of all the things that could have been talked about, we're going to go into what she actually does say when she gets there. If that's a good next step, would be, so out of all of this, okay, so confronting white supremacy. So we know Charlottesville happened. We know they came down with the tiki torches. We know that they were a bit bent out of shape about the whole removing the monuments from the Confederate. We know that the Daughters of the Confederacy are not going to like that and all of that shit. So they'll give some pushback. Don't even talk about removing the flag or the mountain from the monument of in there. What is it? Stone Mountain. None of those things, all of those great symbolisms of white supremacy. We won't talk about removing any of those. We'll just talk specific and facts and numbers. Does white supremacy exist? How do you prove it? Where are the numbers to verify it? And then now that you have everybody's attention, and the gentleman from West Virginia has agreed, and the gentleman from the Appropriations Committee has come down and he said, yeah, we can pull those numbers to see how much it would actually cost. Then you get the other gentleman from military. What is probably a good military state? Or whatever the states are. Let's just take 5 states: the Mississippi, Georgia, Wisconsin. Is that a fucking state? I don't know. Wherever there is a state with a heavily invested white supremacist faction, paramilitary groups, and then they say, well, let's break this down. Let's look at their participation rate. Are they going to the gun range more? Are they just lobbyists, or are they actually gearing up? What type of purchases have these individuals that are on this list? What are they doing? Are you monitoring? Are you watching, the transactions, their gun clubs and things? What are you doing to confront white supremacy? What are you actually doing? So that's the conversation that you would think would happen, would be someone going in to say, what are you doing to confront white supremacy? And then asking those people who are responsible for those different committees to give you some stats, some information, some data. But rather than that conversation, she goes in and says it was a farce, repeated every 4 years ahead of an election cycle by Democrats to get black votes. She argued that it was Democratic policies that are what hurt black Americans, not white supremacy. She goes in there to talk to white supremacists and white nationalists and their frontmen, their representatives, and their representatives, and the people who are governing and making policy for those constituents. And she goes in and has a conversation with them and says, I just think it's quite hilarious that black people still think that white supremacy is the problem. Like, really? It's really a farce. It really doesn't. And she's talking to them. Clown ass bitch. Like I said, I hate being rude like that, but that shit is necessary. That's some clown ass shit, bro. Super clown ass shit. Nobody here could actually provide them because, she get this one. Also found it quite hilarious that when asked for actual numbers, nobody here could actually provide them because white nationalism is not actually a problem in America, or a major problem, or a threat that's facing black America. This is, again, just election rhetoric. Owen said, pointed out by the Real Clear Politics. She said it out of her mouth. So she goes to the Senate subcommittee hearing where all of these folks are at. The gentleman from West Virginia, or the CIA, Virginia, all of those folks. Appropriations bill. Who was all there? And tells them that white supremacy doesn't exist. And one of her major talking points is that when she asks black people to prove that white supremacy exists, what are the real numbers for white supremacy existing? Nobody can provide her the numbers of white supremacy existing or white nationalism. Do you see that shit? I'm going to say it one more time. So she goes to the place where they are And instead of asking them to provide the numbers for white nationalism, KKK, your Central Intelligence, the KKK is a part of the motherfucking terrorist watch list. What are you doing to actually watch them? Is it cameras? Is it transactions? Is it bank statements? Is it the groups, their gun clubs, their car clubs, the places that they work? Do you have motherfuckers with cameras outside their homes? Each individual, their numbers are rising. How do you know that they're rising? Their websites that they go to. Well, we know from their websites. Are they getting more views, more how do you know? And instead of her asking them, she says, well, when I ask black people, they can never really give me the data for white national. It's just a talking point that black people use, or that is used to get the black vote. Why the fuck didn't she ask him while she was sitting right there with them motherfuckers? My bad, you can't even see my screen again. Let me get that back up. Audio is necessary. So I found it interesting. The next day, which was yesterday, Candace Owens at The Real Candace Owens. Why is Twitter running declaring that I said white nationalism is not a problem for Black America, when they know that I said it is not the biggest problem facing Black America? I typically let their propaganda slide, but this seems to me to be an example of actual malice, playing the victim. She be doing the same one. Black people always try to play the victim. And I just think you need to get out of that victim mentality and that blame game. And you want to blame white supremacy or white nationalism when she goes to Congress to tell Congress that white nationalism is not a problem. When she asks black people, well, what are the numbers? Prove it. But then goes to Congress and testifies in front of the Joint Committee. And I didn't elect this bitch. And so what they did was fact check her ass. Owens' full remarks. So Representative Jim Jordan, the gentleman from Ohio, Republican, but I did walk in a few minutes ago, Mr. Mark Meadows, were visiting the back room and noticed that Miss Owens, you hadn't spoken for a while. So if there's something you'd like to add to the discussion over the last few minutes, I'd be happy to yield my 4 minutes to you and let you comment. But thank you again for your outstanding testimony, for being here as our witness today. Whose witness are you, Candace Owens? You are theirs. You're not ours. Stop talking black shit. Stop saying what black people do. Stop talking what Democrats do. Stop talking what liberals do. You are their witness. Testify about being submissive to white men and what that means to you and how that is the perfect ideal state for you. As a black woman, your individual perspective is that it is better to be submissive to the white man. Say that then. Your white husband and the white dominant politicians that you bear witness for. And when you're asked to bear witness, rather than bearing witness about Black America, because you are not, you are a far better representation of we all are America, not Black America. You're a representation of a universalist thinking where race does not matter. So don't speak from a black lens or from a black perspective. Now, it will be hard, but not for you to determine. As Candace Owens, she can only be responsible for her own perspective that she puts out there, even though the people that she's speaking to or for and bearing witness on behalf of, they're still going to look at her as a black woman. She is still looked at as the black woman, but she should not put herself in that position to say, well, I speak for black folks. And I don't think she wants to anyway. And I think if there was one thing that she should change, it would probably be to take a trip to Jamaica, go get some of that motherfucking skin bleaching cream and go on through with the surgery. Go on all the way through with that shit. Go through with it. Because black YouTube can't teach you to love your blackness. We definitely can't convince you to stop hating your blackness. And we definitely can't get you to stop hating on the blackness that others have. Not the black culture, not the lesser of these or the most accomplished of these, whether educated or struggling check to check or government, living off of the government, like our military men or like our food stamp recipients. However be it you might see it, we understand that at one period they were giving away hundreds of millions of acres of land, and that we weren't getting that shit. And to this day, when it comes to land ownership, it's still one of the primary drivers of economic sustainability. Do you have land? So I don't know if you can actually, if it's close enough for you to actually see it. I try to make it bigger for those folks who want to read ahead, because we could be here for some hours waiting on me to get through with this shit as much as I rant. But we'll go into her comments right now. Host of the Candace Owens Show. So she's not a politician. She's just a host of the Candace Owens Show. I think it's an Instagram thing or a YouTube channel or something. I don't know what it is, but it's a show, undoubtedly. Maybe she's on, is she on Fox News or something? Maybe, I don't know. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I was just commenting backstage. I mean, back behind the chambers, that is. Quite ironic that I'm the only Black American that's sitting here. Stop identifying as Black American, first and foremost. Stop it. You are universal. We all are. There is no race type person. You know you are. There is no race. You know there's no race. You know you would have a problem saying the white Americans. You would have a problem saying white people do this. You would have a fucking problem saying it. She would have a fucking problem saying white people this, white people that, white people this, white people that. But she loves to say Black America, black, black, black. She would have a fucking problem saying white people to white people. She would say, because white people right now are determining the fate for Black Americans because you're the majority of the votes. No matter if you got 100% of the Black vote, your opinion matters, which is why I am sitting here today. She doesn't say that. She says, I'm the only Black person or Black American that's sitting here, and yet the people that called this hearing haven't asked me a single question about my experience. I dig that. I like that. They ain't ask you shit about your experience because they don't give a fuck. But let's move forward. I think that probably points to what I say the larger issue is that here she goes, her favorite talking point. So you're here to give your witness testimony to white supremacy and confronting white supremacy to the people who have all the economic and military means to deal with once and for all white supremacists and violent white nationalists. And rather than having any opinion about dealing with violent white nationalists or white nationalists here in America, you are the only Black American who's given this opportunity to say anything. And what the fuck do you say to them? So for those women who rock with me, you know I don't like to throw that word bitch around off, but this bitch here had it coming. Allow me to cook where cooking needs to happen. Cooking needs to happen in the kitchen. So she's the only Black American asked to sit there. They didn't ask about her experience and none of that shit. She's called to a subjoint committee on confronting white supremacy. And the first thing out this bitch mouth is, I think it points to the larger issue. It's that Democrats come up with the problems. They come up with the solutions, and Black Americans are basically used as props for them to get out their narrative and to ultimately control our vote using fear tactics. And it's hard because people be like, well, are you going to rebuttal what she actually said or just continue to throw ad hominem attacks at her character? You know, the married to the white man thing, and you're not Black, so stop calling yourself Black, and then saying she would have a problem saying white people. So we're going to go through this entire thing and see if she says white people, because I'm not libeling her. She does have a white husband, and I just want to see if she actually says white people here, because we obviously see she says Black people. She has no problem talking about Black people, which is me. I'm Black. But I want to see at the end of this, has she addressed white people once? Has she called white people once? Since she can talk about Black Americans, let's see if she can talk about white Americans. You're here to talk about, what is the topic? Confronting white supremacy. And rather than talk about white people to white people, she says this is just something used to make Black people afraid and to vote Democrat. Everybody hates Angel. Thanks for coming, man. Little Miss Chocolate, how you doing, love? We got to cook in the kitchen. That's where hey, man, I'm not standing outside no grill barbecuing Candace Owens. I am in my kitchen right now. I am in the cabinet with the pots and pans. I'm pulling out seasoning. She says, I think that probably points to what I say is the larger issue. Again, nobody asked you for your experience. But now that you're here and you're giving a testimony, you say that there is a larger issue. What is that larger issue to Candace Owens? It's that Democrats come up with the problems. Stop right there. Democrats come up with the problems. You would have to really unpack that. You would really have to unpack that. Really, really have to unpack that. The gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Scott, African-American, part of the, is he a senator? Yeah. The gentleman, rather. He's a Republican, conservative type, says that inside of our communities, there are areas, blighted neighborhoods, things that may not have been giving the tender care of a strong and well-managed capitalist thinking person or manager, real estate manager, equity manager, in the third. He says that inside of these blighted spots, there are eyesores, that there's crime, there's boarded up windows, glass, all of that stuff. Business is not attractive for local business. It's not stimulating the economy. The property values are decreasing. He says all of this. The public education system is now impacted because the tax base has been drastically reduced as flight happens and urban flight happens. He looks at it and says, when I look at that, I see an opportunity. And he drafts a bill, proposes a bill for opportunity zones that he then partners with people bipartisan, such as the gentleman from New Jersey, the gentleman Booker. And they partner up and they look at it and say, you know what, let's make an opportunity out of this. Let's identify places where they have been blighted, and inside of those communities or those spaces, the economics have started to be depreciated, and that's not good in the capitalist era. We want to see the charts moving up. We want to see the property values going up. That is a sign of status right there. That is a sign of social and economic success. And as the politicians representing some of these districts and some of these areas, let's identify these opportunities. Let's put them inside of those zones, and let's partner up with corporations and partner up with equity managers, and let's partner up with those communities and maybe even some of those churches and even individuals who are ready to invest. What should we call this? What should we call it? So that was a Republican who came up with a problem. She says Democrats come up with the problems. They come up with the solutions, and Black Americans are basically used as props. So Republican gentleman out of South Carolina saw a problem that he came up with. He was like, you know what, let's look at it from a different lens. There's some economic opportunity there. Let's call it an opportunity zone. He came up with a solution. Solution is I got to work bipartisan and get some people to say yes. Once I get it written all up, get some bipartisan support. We're going to have to get votes for it and get it onto the floor. Let's run that. So problem, solution, Republican. She would disagree. So I would have to unpack that and see how. What problems are the Democrats coming up with that she would identify, and what solutions do they feel are out there? If somebody has an opinion, be sure to drop those motherfuckers in the chat. Keep me honest, man. But at times they say, are you gonna rebuttal what she's actually saying, or are you just gonna throw those ad hominem attacks? This issue of economic disparity or income disparity or the outcomes due to the disparate impact, DISPARATE. The great economist that they love, Thomas Sowell, talks about the disparate impact test, and he doesn't like the disparate impact test because, again, it's speaking to the heart and the true character of those people. In economics, no, it is not promised that because you have access that you will become rich or affluent. Because you're a part of a capitalist system, the areas that they look at are, do you have access? Is that access there for you? Are you educated? Do you have access? That is their major premise, is access. Just the word. Do you have access to capital? Do you have equal access to the courts? Do you have equal access to, that's their word. My argument is always that it's not just about access. Access is not there, especially when you're going into spaces that are still predominantly owned by racists. Hate to have an RBR moment, but I got to drop it right there. If the majority that you need to be behind your rights and the advancement of you and your community and your people and your opportunities, if the majority is against you, you need as many people on your side as you can to try to even stand up to pose a significant competing threat to that majority, or even one that should be acknowledged. The Democratic vote, or black people always vote Democratic, was a tactic to try to pull in that political resource to say, look, now that we have all of these numbers, are you willing to listen? Do we now pose a significant competing voice in order to get the needs of our constituents met? I don't give a fuck if you don't like food stamps. The problem that food stamps was attempting to address, twofold, and I'll give the macro and then the micro. The macro, individuals who can seldom afford their own food for their family should have a safety net. There's somewhere you ought to be able to go. We have too many farms out here for us not to be. And then the macro is the smaller, the bigger, my bad, in reverse. Do that over. The macro. We were an agrarian society and still are an agrarian society with most of our land going towards the produce and the sustainable produce of those big four major companies that own the feed us industry. Wheat, corn. South Carolina used to have rice like gold. What happened in Haiti in the 90s with the Bill Clintons? Haiti was 90% dependent on their rice. Them Arkansas boys came in and cleaned all that shit up, didn't they? Disparate impact when the Arkansas boys and the Arkansas farmers decided that they wanted more exclusive or more dominant rights in the rice industry, bankrupt the fuck out of Haiti intentionally. And she may not call that white supremacy, but I don't know what else to call it. She may not want to call out the white people who did it, but I call they're white people. They are white, just like you could call black American, there's white American. So she starts off by saying that they're running from it. Nigga, please. Let me keep going, man, because that rant can get long. I'm going to finish out this one and get to the other story that I wanted to talk about. I've been on this point long enough. I think the point is beaten down, and you could probably expect what comes next. I'm going to go into my power reading phase, so stick with me. And I don't have a Candace Owens voice. I have a Moses Jenkins voice. So here's that. So disproving that it's Democrats. Republicans also come up with problems. Republicans also come up with solutions. Black Americans are basically used as props by propaganda media in politics, social, economics. Everybody loves to exploit the black folks. That would be my rebuttal. Even black folks like to exploit black folks for them to get out their narrative and to ultimately control our vote using fear tactics. Now, fear tactics will always be with us because we have idiots who go into this space of politics and are not willing to sacrifice their lives. Black politicians who are willing to sacrifice their lives actually die when they try to go into politics and then talk that white people shit and try to overcome that thing where fear is most useful. So in politics, fear is one of the biggest driving forces, the ability to have a mob come and kill everyone. So it's not just a fear tactic. It is a reality. They will burn this shit down. They will send the military. If not the military, they will send in the police. The police used to come in the SWAT trucks to our neighborhood in Del Paso Heights all the time. Nigga, we're 100% familiar. We could show you the numbers on the increase in military equipment purchased by these cities, these small cities, these states. These states used a lot of their budget and their tax revenue and their tax dollars to buy more military equipment. Those are facts that you cannot deny. The fear tactic is not just poverty, but it is also the ability to lose your life if you infuriate the majority of white folks who do have this racist leaning ideology that says that says America was greatest when we had the greatest amount of control over black folks. I need a sound effect right there. She says, I also found it quite hilarious that when I asked for the actual numbers, nobody here could actually provide them because white nationalism is not actually a problem in America or a major problem or a threat that's facing Black America. This is, again, just election rhetoric. This is, again, just an attempt to assault an administration that is doing all that it can, can to help Black America in every single regard. Bitch, please. Only thing that I would agree with is those people who say it is not this administration's job to do for Black America. That is the job of the Black men. If she is saying something like that, then I would agree. But if she is saying all of you folks are trying to hold Trump accountable for doing something that no other president has been able to do, which is to eliminate racism in America, this is not the way to do it. If you're saying that the administration is doing all that it can do, then they got a whole lot more bodies to get. Which is a very unrealistic expectation. Whether it's criminal justice reform, whether it's talking about real issues like school choice, which should be implemented to conquer some of these illiteracy rates, that is to conquer. Those are fighting words. Combat, assault. So you go on to talk about white supremacy and you use the language of a fighter, but then I don't even want to say it. I almost got vulgar as fuck. Harming the Black community. So you're using all the language and rhetoric of fighting while going in there on your knees. I'll say it that way. That one makes more sense, and it still has the vulgarness to it that I wanted to say. It's just as vulgar. You're going in on your knees saying, I'm the only Black person here, and that's in itself acknowledgeable. And then you go in and say, well, I don't think white supremacy is the real problem. She goes on to say, and I think it's unfortunate that we have this many hearings on something that is so small in America, and we aren't having real hearings. I actually don't think the Democrats have completed a single day of real work since Donald J. Trump took office. This has just been about attacking his administration day in and day out. Nobody asked you about your opinion on the Democrats. They asked you about confronting white supremacy. And you took over a whole minute of your time to, this is just clickbait for the Black community in order to get the Black community's vote. What do you think about confronting white supremacy at some point? Finally gets to it. I just think that it's small and it's not a real issue. And that we're spending time on these, we're wasting time on these hearings and we're not discussing real things. Why would you need to go to Congress to talk about illiteracy rates? Wouldn't that be the school board? Don't they got a Department of Education? I think you're in the wrong room for that conversation. If they asked you to talk about the Board of Education and free school and all of that shit, they got a different department. That was a meeting down the hall. Did you get lost? Criminal justice reform. We asked you to talk about apples. Instead, you come in this motherfucker talking about kiwis and bananas and oranges. Unless you're going to link criminal justice reform, I know this is going to go on, but unless she's going to link criminal justice reform to some form of white supremacy or the white supremacists inside of prison, I don't know why she brings up this. A question, and you're talking about other topics that you think would be important rather than addressing the damn topic, confronting white supremacy. Oh, I don't think it's important because there are other topics. But if I had to say something about white supremacy, this is what I would say. Goes on because she had 4 minutes. We will about things that are a threat to. How is white supremacy not a threat to them? How is white nationalism not a threat to America? Slavery weren't citizens, where that fear that she's mob rule, or that mob mentality coming in and killing Americans only applies if blacks are not considered citizens anymore. If the running them over in cars or showing up where they shop and being mass shooters, if that stuff didn't matter, and all the training in the world that they do with these gun ranges and these gun clubs and all of that shit, that's why that's important, my bros. That's why that's important. Brother, that's important. All of these gun ranges and gun enthusiasts and all of that shit, and how they stay connected and well trained, is because of the same fear point that she's referring to. That when the white mob rules, or the white national mob militia is on the move, it is a actual real threat. So how the fuck does she turn around and say, well, something that's actually a threat to America? White nationalism would rip America apart once they give that same order. Every time one of these mass shootings happen, what do they say? Well, this was an isolated or an individual incident. Why do they feel the need to affirm that? When it happens, other than, oh, this person has a history of mental illness, the other thing that they say is it doesn't seem to be linked to any other national terrorist groups. Why do they have to affirm that? They have to affirm it because of a military science perspective that says this might be a lone wolf, but this lone wolf could still be a part of a broader network. And today it could be the lone wolf. And if you are ill prepared as a nation, or as a city, as a state, as a town, as a mall, as a people, as a community, if you are ill prepared to deal with a lone wolf, then how do you deal with the organized and determined gang mob of white nationalists? How do you deal with it? And rather than talking about white nationalism, look at her very next deflection. Illegal immigration. Don't be afraid of white nationalists. Be afraid of Mexican women and children. The Guatemalans are coming. The Guatemalans are coming. Which is a threat to Black America, like socialism. Now she's going off. So it's not okay to believe that white nationalism is a threat, but socialism is a threat. Boogeyman. Don't believe in the white nationalism boogeyman. Believe in the socialism boogeyman. Don't believe that capitalism is a threat. Believe that communism is a threat. But I asked you to talk about confronting white supremacy. You said, I am so determined not to talk about white supremacy, I'm going to talk about everything else. She goes on to say, which is a threat to every single American. And I hope that we see that day. I take the word idiot back. I don't think she's an idiot at all. There may be other people who would probably use this platform or go to a sub who might be idiots, like RBR, who goes to a white supremacist media group or channel on YouTube and tries to have the conversation from his perspective, and he comes out sounding like a blithering idiot. I didn't watch it, by the way, but I watched his recap, because I'll be damned if I go watch it on the damn white supremacist network. And so, I mean, platform, channel itself, not the platform, not the channel itself. For me, it would be the equivalent of actually going to Jeff Sessions' house to have this conversation, or to the gentleman from West Virginia showing up at the house to have this conversation. You can go to the House, you can go to Congress, and you have a seat and you're asked to testify, what the fuck is it that you would want to talk about? And so she goes there and she says, look, this isn't the problem. Education is the problem for Black people, and immigration is the problem for all Americans. That's what she says. She says white nationalism, or she says it's not necessary to confront white supremacy because it's such a small topic. There's so many other real issues like education and immigration. I would not disagree that those are big issues. I would not disagree that those are big issues. So if y'all were here from the start, let me give you a shout out and a salute. Bro Gab, respect. I wouldn't disagree that education is a hell of an issue to talk about in a black America. But if you are the only African American invited to the subcommittee hearing, and your perspective, and the topic is confronting white supremacy, and you are the only voice of reason from the Black community that they are going to listen to for 4 minutes. We have a 4-minute perspective from Candace Owens, and she says, you know what? I'm not going to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. It's stupid. Let's not talk about it. It's such a small and trivial issue. There are bigger issues. It's something that the Democrats use just to get votes. What the real issue is education in the Black community and socialism, and then immigration. Those are the big issues. That's a recap of what we've read so far when Candace Owens, went to the Senate hearing and was the only African American there. And this is what she wanted to talk to them about when they asked her to testify or give her witness on confronting white supremacy or white nationalism. She says anything remotely relevant to confronting white supremacy? Or does she continue to create a scarecrow argument that says, no, these are the other issues. These issues are more important. Does she now go on and classically talk about the issues that she thinks are important rather than testifying about what they asked her to testify about? Let's see. She says, hopefully that conversation happens one day. So I'm hopeful that we will come to a point where we will actually have hearings about things that matter in America, things that are a threat to America, like illegal immigration, which is a threat to Black America, like socialism, which is a threat to every single American. And I hope that we see that day. It's definitely not going to be today. Fortunately, we have Republicans that are fighting every single day, day in and day out. Nobody asked you to come and give a testimony about how good the Republicans are and how bad the Democrats are. How much you love the Trump administration versus how much you think that people are just looking to attack the Trump administration rather than talk about the issues. You again are at fault. You can't call her the gentlewoman. What do you call her? So if they call the men who are in politics the gentleman from, and she's not a congressman, fuck all that. She's a fucking podcaster. Fortunately, we have Republicans that are fighting every single day, day in and out. And I'll wrap this up by saying what I said at the beginning of my testimony, which is that for all of the Democrat colleagues that are hoping that this is going to work and that we're going to have a fearful Black America at the polls, if you're paying attention to this stuff that I'm paying attention to, the conversation is cracking. People are getting tired of this rhetoric. We're being tired too. That we are being told by you guys to hate people based on the color of their skin or to be fearful. We want results. We want policies. We're tired of rhetoric, and the numbers show that white supremacy and white nationalism is not a problem that is harming Black America. Let's talk about putting fathers back in the home. Let's start talking about God and religion and shrinking government, because government has destroyed Black American homes. And every single one of you know that. And I think many people should feel ashamed for what we have done and what Congress has turned into. It's days of our lives in here, and it's embarrassing. So that's what she actually did say. Any thoughts or opinions, feel free to chime into the chat. So everybody got caught up on that, the T.I. Candace Owens, Make America Great Again. Start off by trying to establish when was America great again for Africans in America or African descent or black people. I like just saying black. When was America great? And never being able to answer that question, because it's always a deflection into, look, this is most trivial. White supremacy doesn't exist type arguments, and white nationalism is not a threat to America. Then pivoting to, she had a Senate hearing where she was actually called and she testified. Just read to you the testimony that she actually provided there, as provided by Real Clear Politics. That story there, I'm gonna put a nice bow on it. Once again, I told you my opinion. I think that the bitch is full of shit. She's not elected. She doesn't represent us. She represents a universal. Why are we talking about race? Race isn't a thing. I think that she goes off on these tangents of just wanting to play a part of that political gamesmanship. And to that political gamesmanship, she will bring up that there are real issues to talk about those real issues. She just talks about the fact that these issues need to be talked about. And while she has a platform, I hope that at some point she understands that those real issues that she thinks needs to be talked about, there are people that she has access to right up the hall from that president who she sits and talks with, who are a part of those conversations. If you want to talk about I think by them inviting her, they really they knew what they were doing, so we can't really control what they. Hopefully we get to the day where we have black folks who are invited, who will have a actual conversation on the topic. It said confronting white supremacy. She got up there and said, I don't want to talk about that. I don't think it's a real issue. So move on to the next one now. Now that I got that triggered moment out, I would love to have the conversation with anybody. Damn it. Will not give me access to my screen, so I got to premise it just with conversations. Once again, the next talking point, and this one will not be an hour and 20 minutes.